Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sheri.
And together we are the Traveling Professors. Welcome to show number 94. Now this is going to be a walking tour of Pompeii, but this is part one. This is a huge place. So we're going to just cover part of it. We're going to walk down to the arena and then look at the amphitheaters and then walk back to the main forum. If you are planning on going to Pompeii, this is quite a task because the site is over 170 acres. Only about 25 to 30% of it is unexcavated, but the rest is there for you. They have a gigantic map, and we purchased one, and I was going to have a nice little video with Sheri, but I have been unable to find that map. But needless to say, it was like getting a map of the United States and trying to figure out where you were standing. It can get a little confusing. The other thing is, if you're going to Pompeii, make sure you have good shoes, because we had good shoes and they were destroyed by the time we were finished in the day. And also make sure you have a hat or an umbrella if you're going in the summertime, because there's very little shade until you get to the amphitheater and a couple of other places. So let's head on into Pompeii. Now the map that you see here is a map showing the expansion of Pompeii by various groups. The city was founded by the Etruscans, and of course it's part of Magna Graecia, but it's really a Samnite territory. So the first part of the Samnite city is the reddish color. Then years later they expanded to the blue section, and then they expanded to the green section. About 89 BCE, the Romans then expanded it into the yellow section. And of course they had taken over this region prior to that as well. Then this one shows the archaeological piece of this. The first archaeological dig on the site was actually done by the Emperor Titus, because they were trying to find some of the gold and stuff that had been in the region. And there are some looting operations throughout history coming in here looking for different things. In about 1592, they began to get some more serious excavation. Herculaneum was rediscovered in 1738. And then in 1799 to 1815, when the French controlled this area, this land that Pompeii sat on was confiscated and taken over by the government to keep it from being completely lost. And you can see the various excavations. Now, notice that a lot of the excavation, which in the light brown, that is prior to 1983. And then you have the little dark black spot, that was excavated in 83. And then you see the other periods of excavation. Now, one of the issues that you have here is the fact that in 1980, a massive earthquake hit this area, and this was badly damaged. And quite frankly, from the time of the earthquake, which was 1980, basically all that they had been doing was reconstructing and trying to salvage what had been there to begin with. Now, Sheri and I were there in 2018, so that was 5 years ago. And one of the things that happened in 2018 is the EU gave Italy a couple of $2 billion to work on renovations and excavations, and they moved a lot of material around. There were a lot of places that were closed, and they were in the process of tremendous reconstruction and finally some new additional excavations that were going on. You can see the white areas, the area that has not been excavated up in the northern area. Obviously the amphitheater has been, and the other area where the arena is located had been excavated. Well, that is how the archaeological piece of this went. We were a little disappointed, and you'll find out about what in a little bit. So here's a map that shows the site based on what was located there. So for example, the public buildings are all in light blue. So you see the arena, you see this Palestrina here, you see the various amphitheaters, and then of course the main forum, and then the temple region. And then you have, in dark blue, they have the temples. So there are just a few of them, not a lot of temples. Now stores to buy things, that's in yellow. And you see that they're really concentrated right in this area right here. And then you have private buildings, and those are all in this lightish brown color. Those are all private homes. And then you have houses of dignitaries in red. One of these, which is this one right here, number 48, that is the House of the Vetti. That has been closed for 20 years. For reconstruction and repair, and it is now, this year, 2023, open again to the public. Now, in order to get to Pompeii, you can go by bus, you can get a tour, but there is a little tiny railroad that runs to Pompeii. They have a station at Pompeii and ends up at Sorrento. And that's the way most people who come into Naples come in to do this. So it will go through here. Now, it's not a fancy train. It's not like the ones that are on the main line up here in the red. It's kind of a commuter rail. So we went down into the main train station. You could actually go to this. There's another station where this starts, but we opted to go to the main station. So here we are waiting for the train to come around the corner. And then here is a shot of it. It looks more like a metro than it does like a train. And then here's the interior of it. And I was surprised it wasn't really crowded. There wasn't a big group. We were going as early as we could in the morning, and we stayed almost till about 4:30. We might have stayed a little longer if the clouds hadn't come up to look like rain. So we're there most of the day. And then on the way, here's a view of Mount Vesuvius out the train window. And then when we get to Pompeii, the Pompeii station, you can see the exterior of it. It's pretty much gone through heavy graffiti on the inside and the outside. But it did get us there, and it was pretty comfortable, and that's how we'll get back at the end of the day. So we went over to the ticket office and purchased our tickets. So we came in right about here, and we're going to walk into Pompeii, this direction, and we're heading to the Central Forum. Now you can see the land area here. Remember that Pompeii in 79 AD was a seacoastal town. It is now 2,300 feet inland as a result of the volcanic eruption, and that Pompeii itself was covered with 13 to 20 feet of ash. So we come in, we've gotten our ticket, we've gone through the gate, and then here we start seeing the exterior. Once you go through the wall, some of the houses in this area, and we're just going to follow this path on up into the city. Here you can see some of the stucco off to the side of on the buildings. And then we go through this tunnel-like area, and you can see that the cobblestones here, they're everywhere. And then once we get a little closer to the main area of the forum, you'll see that the walkway gets a lot nicer. It's actually mosaic at this particular point. And then we come out into the southern end of the forum, looking towards Mount Vesuvius. And the area you're looking straight ahead at this point, that's where we'll be heading in the part 2 of our Pompeii story. Again, looking at the picture of the forum as we entered, let's give you an idea of what it looked like in ancient times. So here's a reconstruction of what the forum would have looked like at the time before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. What we're going to be looking at in this forum is, this is the plan of it. Now we have come in right between the Temple of Apollo and the Basilica of Pompeii. Now remember, a basilica is a law court. So we're going to see this. We'll look at the colonnades. They have this whole area in a colonnaded fashion. And then once we have seen what we want to see right here, then we're going to head out this direction, which is the Via dell'Abbondanza. And then we will come back and look at these other buildings in part 2 of our Pompeii tour. So here we are going through the various columns. And remember, the Romans have a variety of ways of cutting costs of columns. And here's one of them. You have the brick core, and they cover it with a concrete substance, and then they work it with another layer and make it look like it's a regular stone pillar. But you'll also find actual stone pillars. So here's an example where we have different parts of one stacked together to hold up this particular section. Then here's the main entrance into the basilica. And you would have waited out here and gone into the first section where you would meet with your attorneys or whatever else, and then gradually go up to the front where your case would be tried. Then coming back out, turning around, again, you see this colonnade along the side. And then here's a little closer view of that colonnade. And then here's the other section as we're getting ready to head out. And you see, again, we've got different pieces of stones. This one is in front of what's known as the building of the Eumachia. So what we're going to do is we are right here, and we're going to take this main road right here. We're going to go all the way down and then visit the arena. That's our goal. Now then, you can see from this just how far we have to go and then how far we have to come back. Literally, I think we could have walked through this whole section where all the different villas and things are and not walked as far. But we're going to try and do the whole thing. So here we are walking down the street heading towards the arena. Now, in most guidebooks call it the amphitheater, but I'm going to call it the arena because it was for gladiating people down the way. And as you come to the different street corners, look up on the wall of the building here on the right-hand side. It gives you numbers, and that allows you to find your location in the city on the map. A lot of these streets have these blocking devices so they can open and close them depending on what kind of work is being done in the city. Then here's looking back from where we started. And then we continue on. Here's another building with a little villa. And then we come down the street a little bit and we see this house under construction. We get a little closer to it. You see they've got a roof over it to protect it while they're reworking it. And here's a nice close-up of the tiles and the roofing. But what's interesting is across the street, because in 1983, this was the new building that they excavated. It's the Thermopolium with Alarium. So it's a food counter. So you can see the counter spaces where they sell food and drink. And then they have storerooms in the back, and then they have a garden area in the back. So here's a close-up look of the stucco work, one side of the food bar, if you will. And then we go into the back, and you see some of the side buildings. Here we have an area blocked off. This is what was there, mosaic of some kind. And we have a storeroom with its stucco painted wall, and another one of the rooms with the stuccoed work. And then you have the garden. This one actually had a little bitty place where there would have been a shrine to the house god. And then we come to another section where we have even more elaborate stucco work and painting on the walls. And of course, in earthquakes, this gets damaged pretty heavily. And there's a nice view of the whole section of the wall. Imagine all these buildings with the stucco and the colors and everything off. And there are a couple of places where you find buildings that have some of the leftover graffiti from elections. When you did local elections, people would have painted white walls, and you would then support some candidate. And at night, people who were the other guy running against them would then paint over them and put their people. And then we continue on down. We've gone quite a ways, and we finally start seeing some greenery. There are several park areas in this region. This was not as heavily developed because of the arena and other things. So you go down the walkway here, down the street. Now, these are owned by much more powerful people. One of these is actually supposed to be Augustus's property, and they would have vineyards. And so there was one section where it was opened, and you could see that they have replaced the vines, and they're growing. I don't know whether they sell Pompeii wine at the restaurant. And again, we continue getting closer to the arena. And I'm getting really excited because I've always wanted to go into the arena. We've been to Rome, and we've been in the Colosseum. But this one, it still has the regular dirt floor on it. It doesn't have the fancy structure that the Colosseum had. So you can see this area is somewhat roped off. So we have walked from down here all the way up to this greenery area. So where we had the trees, where we had Augustus's property, and then now we're turning to go to the arena. Finally, we arrive at the arena. Now, it doesn't look like the Colosseum. It's not supposed to be. There's a couple of things about this. It was built in 80 BCE. Sulla, one of the great tyrants, used Pompeii as a place to reestablish or to give his veteran soldiers land and a place to live. And so it's at that time that this is constructed. And it's actually built by two men who we know, Quintus Valgus and Marcus Porcius. And they also built the Odeon, or the smaller amphitheater that we'll get to later on. Now, this place does not have an understructure like the Colosseum. You can see the steps directly in front of us. They have several of those, so you can go up to the top and then move down to your seats. It is considered the oldest stone-built arena. Most of the others were originally made out of wood. Even the Circus Maximus was made out of wood until Caesar had it built out of stone. And it's built to hold 20,000 people, which is twice the population that would have been living here in Pompeii. So we get up a little closer and we figure, okay, we're going to walk up the steps, or there's a little side area that we could go in. So we get a little closer. We're the first people here. And we come up to the steps and start to walk up. And when you get to the top, it's blocked. The whole arena is off limits. Found out later on that what was happening is they were moving objects of art into this arena to protect them while they were doing reconstruction, because they were doing a tremendous amount of work here. And I would say that something like 35% of the city was blocked off. And one of the reasons for that is there was a time limit to use the money the EU had given the Italian government. So they stored all sorts of stuff here. So we went around a little bit further, hoping that they'd made a mistake or I could at least get a nice little look. And the one entrance that they had was blocked off. So I'm disappointed that we can't go in. So I have to help you out a little bit. Here's an aerial photograph of the facility. Of course, as you see, you would come in from the top. Oh, if you remember the black and white version of The Last Days of Pompeii, the scene where the volcano blows up from the arena is awesome. However, I did have a former student who was here a few years before, and I contacted him, and he said, yes, I have some pictures. So here is the picture that he took where I couldn't get in. This would bring you in on the top, and this is looking around the top of the stadium, and then you would move to get to different levels. And then here is the view, and this is the entrance where the gladiators or the animals and everything would have been brought in. Now, it was terribly damaged in an earthquake in 62 AD and then restored. And then here's another view shot almost as if you were there when they were filming the movie. But the gladiators would have come out there into the middle and then the volcano in the back. So that was unfortunately our situation there at the arena. So we left the arena and there's a large square area, palestra, which you could do gymnastics, you could do exercises, you could have various parties and all sorts of entertainments here going on. And so this is one view of it, and then I'm just taking a panoramic shot here. There's the next side, and then there's the other side of it. It's open on one end and has three sides. So we have now finished the arena and the palestra right across from it. Now we're going to walk down to the amphitheaters. The large amphitheater and the small amphitheater, which is also known as the Odeon, which is a place where you would have plays, but an Odeon is also a place where you do public business. You can have your meetings of your city council here and what have you. After leaving the arena, we started walking to the amphitheaters. Well, along the way, there is a building where you can go to the bathroom, and so we took advantage of that, and it sets up a little higher so you can get a nice little view. So here's a view looking back towards the forum, which we are headed, and here's a little closer view of some of the buildings that's along that direction as well. So after that, we went down Main Street that we had come the other direction and took a left and headed right towards the amphitheater. Now, this little treed park area has a little temple in it and some other buildings. And then you can see the back of the largest amphitheater with this row of columns, and the columns would have been all the way along it. Then once you get to the other side, this gives you a view of the front of the largest amphitheater, which seats 5,000 people. The smaller one seats about 1,000. They're built the same time. They're built in around 80 BCE. And then looking down, you see what looks like a little flat area. Well, that's the gladiator fighting area. This is where they practice. Nice little view from up here on top, but you can get down at the same gladiator level and look at the various buildings. And then here's Sheri taking pictures of the area where we're headed to, which is where the entrances to the amphitheaters are located. So the first one we come to, here's the amphitheater entrance for the small one. So you go through here, you come into the amphitheater, there's the doorway which we went through, and then this is a nice little panoramic view, and you'll notice there are no people here. We actually were in between tour groups. So the one group had cleared out, and the other one hadn't gotten in yet. So quickly, I opened fire with the camera. So here is the next shot. And then this is as if you were speaking to the crowd. This is the center group. And then off to the left a little bit more. And there's the exit. Now again, this could have been used for various theater performances. It could have been used for singing performances, musical performances. But as an Odeon, it is also someplace where you would have your council meetings. We go out the exit. We are heading on into the next one, which is the large amphitheater. As you can see, we did not get around the group in front of us, but that's okay. So we go out into the center. There's the exit. You can see the entrances at the top. You come up the steps at the bottom. And then I did a little panoramic shot around here. Did not go up to the top of this. We've been up to the top of a lot of amphitheaters over the years, so we thought it'd be better to save our time to get back and see some more of Pompeii. And then here's the group. That's where we came in, and then here's the group kind of climbing around on the top and wandering around. And then it's time to start heading back to the forum. After leaving the theaters and the Odeon, we then begin the walk back to the forum again. So here's one section of the road where you see the people walking from one side of the street to the other using the blocks. And remember, those are, of course, to make sure that you can get across the road when the water is high after a rain. And then here we are looking down the street towards the forum area. And again, you see the little stone walkway across the street. And you can also see here the worn track where the chariots or the wheeled vehicles have used to go through there. And then we are back in the forum where we started in part 2 of our trip to Pompeii. We're going to be covering this area right in here. Baths and the House of the Fawn, other buildings, as well as a Lupanarian. Sheri and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I've been doing podcasting on history for over 15 years. I've got over 4,000 shows, and I've done CDs, which of course can be sent out as USBs. So if you would really like to get more on history for free, then come by my website, as you see here, historyaccordingtobob.com, and see what's there. So thank you very much again.